Welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. It's going to be a wild ride. GG, motherfucker.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Strat Book. I haven't technically escaped the venue yet, but by the time you see this video, I will have. LEGIJA, he was out of Flashpoint ages ago, but then again, it was online, so he was never here in the person. See, I saved it there. That's what you've noticed. Our dynamics change now. What I do is I always start with the diss, and then I make it seem not as bad afterwards. You know, to get the friendliness going again, get the good morale. Actually, I'll give you credit. Considering obviously you haven't played in ages, you were doing a pretty decent job as an IGL when you look at the teams you were playing against. Look at the fact that your team hasn't played very much.
Thank you, man. I mean, it was a great experience also for me, especially because it was first time for me that I was calling, actually. Usually I was always the backup call in my previous teams. It was an interesting experience, and I think I learned a lot from it.
Yes.
So we will see. I think we've done a decent job. And I was actually quite happy, or in general, our team was quite happy with the performance.
All right, well, here's the obvious joke I'd make then. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you were in big, obviously, I just thought, every time I saw you get involved, I thought, wow, Godby really is a genius. But listen, I've seen Nifty calling, so actually, you were doing a good job, mate. You were doing a good... See what I did there? I sort of went again, like, between the diss, backing with a compliment. Sorry. It's just my style. Listen, I'm good at it. What can I say? I'm good at it. So, obviously, our guest for this episode is going to be Aleksib. Famously was the in-game leader of ENCE. Yada, yada, yada. Now he's in OG. Anyway, OG's actually a good team now, believe it or not. We're going to get into that for sure, because that's in itself interesting. Right, what I want to do to start the episode, actually, Alexi, is a lot of the other people we've had on this show are either like coaches of enormous teams, or if it's someone like Carrigan, just like a legendary in-game leader. So you usually don't have to give that much background to a lot of these people. But one thing I noticed is interesting about your career, in fact, most of the players that were in the ENCE team, is it's not like you guys only started playing Counter-Strike in like 2017, 2018. Like, you guys were around years before. You just were literally like nobodies, basically, right? You were just in those teams that were at the lower level, just playing, going to small lands, not really even that relevant, like maybe in like a minor or something every now and then. Like, what were you actually doing for all those years in your career? Were you actually trying hard?
So to go way back, I think I touched CSGO first thing 2012, 2013, but just like minor things. I tried to play League of Legends. I played in a team, in a Finnish team, but I wouldn't say like the most serious thing in the world. It's just something.
What role were you playing?
Jungle.
Of course. There you go. He's an actual IGL. There we go. Right. He knows the way it is. Everyone blames you, and you're the one who has to save the whole fucking game. No, nothing new there in CS, is there?
Yeah. And I think just one point, like I was on League of Legends 2014. I was in this Finnish land called Assembly.
Yeah,
we were
the biggest.
Yes, we were playing a tournament there. I was like Diamond 1, like 70 LP or something like this. Never hit Challenger, never actually, like, I was never actually like insane.
Pro level or whatever, yes. Yeah.
Like decent in terms of solo queue, but nothing insane. And then I just realized it, like, after playing the tournament, because we were struggling against other Finnish people, and I was like the Finnish scene is non-existent. Like,
yes,
no one in the like maybe like White Knight or who are these Cyanide back then,
yes,
who actually played like good. And I thought to myself, like, there is no chance. Like, I just had to be honest. Like, there was no chance other than like maybe if I could somehow hit Challenger like instantly and be like insane, but like I just thought to myself like there is no chance, and I just enjoyed CSGO as well. And then on the same LAN there was a CSGO like bring your own computer tournament.
All right, yes, okay.
And then we were just with friends like, yeah, let's go to that one. Obviously we didn't win it, but I was enjoying it. And then on the next Assembly LAN, or like BIOC tournament again, like bring your own computer, like not the pro, we went there like trying to win, and we were like everybody who we watched there was like, holy shit, they're good. But then we actually won it, and there's this famous YouTube clip about it. It's like one of my first interviews. It's so awkward, it's insane. but anyhow, like there I remember like this was the like noob tournament.
Okay.
But it was huge for me and huge for all of my friends. And then we went to check like the pro tournament, obviously, because I'm a huge fan of like pro CS. And there was this team like Nostalgia or something like this called.
Yes, the mixed team.
Yes, the team where Overdrive.
Overdrive.
And his friends were playing. yes.
Yes, there you go.
And there was like Apex, these kind of players. And that's what I remember about Apex is like, bro, this guy is like so insane because the dude like he talked so much.
Oh, of
and
course, yeah.
He's playing, but he's like talking with his hands at the same time, kind of like as soon as he dies, he like looks to the other player and like.
He's doing
so
the French
involved.
thing
Yeah.
where they just everything's like like you can just see what their emotion is based on their hands just whipping about in front of their face all the time. Yeah, he's ridiculous, isn't he?
That gave me insane like motivation. I was so like hyped to watch these guys play because they played so good, they played so smooth, and I like as soon as I got back into my PC, I was like just grinding and wanted to be better. But then we go to another assembly, we win that, another assembly, we win that, and suddenly we qualified with the it was the stack. We played the Biok tournaments, and then we got actually good, and we had good players, so we qualified for a non-Biok tournament, like a pro tournament in Finland, and then we reached the podium even third place or something like this, winning some or upsetting the Arctic team or the iGame who had Twista and X7, these guys. We won them, but we never could beat ENCE like the 2016 ENCE, for example. But this was the point where, I finally got into a non-Biok tournament, and we finally upset somebody who I thought was a legit good team because only the Finnish scene, obviously, but the second best. And that's when ENCE contacted me, 2016, to go and play there for a tryout contract. And I played there with Juho, Arvid, Sunny, Nasu. And obviously Nasu was a huge legend,
Sure.
Someone I watched, his team also 1.6 and overall fan, so it was huge for me to get this opportunity. And after that, it only took 3 months. Sunny left to Penta, and the whole team collapsed. But I got a spot in a decent Finnish team, and we won every single LAN, everything in Finland with Havu. It was called Havu when we got an organization. And then we played here and there, and then I made the change where there was this guy Reflex. He's a really sick player, but I just saw so much potential in Sergey that I wanted to make the change. And I'm sure the whole team wanted something refreshing because we were at the same place for a long time. We picked up Sergey on to replace Reflex, and we instantly came a lot better. And then we picked Otond at one point. Not sure about the player change when we picked up Otond, but then we played with Otond, Sergey, Xarte, and holy shit, I'm gonna be hated if I don't remember the last guy. I think it was KH Eran. I'm not sure how you Keron. He said.
Keron, yeah.
Kron or something, or whatever. Yeah. Something like that, right?
But anyhow, this team, we actually qualified for Shanghai, even though we got smacked, but actually a close game against Renegades. And then we lost to some team called Flash Wolves, a Chinese
from
team.
Taiwan, I think.
Taiwan,
yeah. We were winning the last map 14-7 on the CT side of train, and we managed to lose it. It was the most disappointing game of my whole life.
Obviously training for OG years later.
But what I mean is that was the moment when I qualified. We actually played somewhat decent. We were almost at the top 30 of the HLTV rankings, which was my
it's a big deal,
goal
yeah.
for a long time, yeah. And then we got into a international LAN. That was somewhat of a breaking point. And then I actually played with quite really good stats back then. Maybe my playstyle was a bit different, and I was involving way more and more to someone that helps a lot more, I guess, rather than just plants the bomb down or this
basics. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this other role. So me and Sergey played with really good stats, and then it happened at one point that I'm not really sure what happened even, but at one point Allu just contacted both of us. First Sergey, I think, and then me, and then we he had the idea that we bring ENCE back and we build a sick team, and then we bounced back on player to player. I told them that I want Ariel. I watched his POVs, and I think he's so selfless that I just wanted to play with him. and he was playing insane, at least in Finland. And then we brought in X7 as the lurker / support player, and that's when ENCE started, and like that's when I guess my career started, like at least in terms of like beating actual good teams and showing what I can do.
Sure.
Was that after Allu left FaZe? Or got replaced
Yes,
in FaZe?
yeah, I'm
Yes,
pretty
right.
sure
It was when he
was.
came back. Yeah.
Yeah.
When he got,
There was
I mean, to be
downtime. I think there was some downtime
Oh, actually,
after that.
Was he
before
was he after FaZe in NIP, or was he before?
no, Nip was
FaZe in
before
NIP?
FaZe.
Before FaZe, right? Okay.
Yeah. If you remember, it's not even like he got kicked for being bad. He was replaced by fucking Guardian.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so that's not even that bad, is it? Like, that's not even a diss on you. So, right, what about this then? Obviously, we're going to talk a lot in this episode, like in-game leading style, maybe some of the players you've played with. But I wanted to get LEGIJA involved early, actually. Right, LEGIJA, I know obviously you aren't like going to the events as an analyst like I am and trying to study the demos in the same way, but you're in the scene. Obviously, you've been around. This is the same time period when you were in Big and then now later in Envy, etc. Like, what's your perspective on Aleksib? Because obviously, one thing I've found very interesting is, except basically for my mate Lurpis, they don't even make in-game leaders in Finland, mate. Like, that's the one role nobody fucking wants to play. They all just want to fucking drink the beer, play like the stack at night, and just play like solo players. Like, they don't, in general, they're not really huge fans of tactics. That's why I actually was impressed by this guy Saw in Flashpoint 1. He actually looked like he was doing some good stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think, LEGIJA? Like, what are your thoughts of Aleksib?
Interesting fact. I don't know. Do you have a good relationship with Kakafu by any chance?
Yeah,
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I'm talking about.
Obviously,
Aleksib
I don't. I
because-
hate the guy. I think he's a cunt, but whatever. Keep going.
But interesting fact is that when we changed, I don't know if it was when we replaced me or anyone else or someone else in the team, but he was so much for picking up you, but I don't know why it didn't happen. Like he was like, we have to pick him. He's very
Like he
good
scouted
in-game
him?
leader. Yes, like he really thought he's a legit fucking good player and very good in-game leader. So Kakawa really wanted to pick him up, and obviously we started focusing a bit on him, and we saw that legit, like they played very well with their Finnish team, and they improved a lot. But what I hate Aleksib the most for is ruining basically our run at the major on train.
That's 4-0.
So I think I
5-on-2,
legit
4-on-2.
think yes. I think
not
this
talking about
round. I think this round brought you guys to the final.
For sure.
It gave you so much confidence. I remember that moment. That was heartbreaking.
So many games have that kind of round, and that was the fucking decider moment for you guys.
Heartbreaking. It was a 0-2 game, and we were like 4-2 up on train with the bomb planted as T on B side, and we lose a 2v4 somehow. I don't understand how.
Yeah,
but
you would have got a match point, I think.
Yes, it would have been match point. Yes. So yeah, that's my biggest opinion on him. But
I wasn't alive on that retake though.
He wasn't. No.
So,
I
so
think
you can be mad
Allu
about
and
the
one more
other.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allu X7 or something.
Yeah.
But I think that they were always like. I remember also when he played in Harbour with the team that he spoke before, with this Caron and Disturbed, or I don't exactly remember who it was, and we had often games like against you guys. I think it was like always the tier 2 games that we played, and it was always a hard time. And it's interesting for us that the Finnish teams always for us had a very interesting style of gaming. It was very loose, but still kind of strict, and a lot of team play involved. Back then, you played like very spread out. That's how we felt. You played very spread out, but everything was well timed together. If action is happening on A, B side is also knows how to react. So we also always thought like that you're a strategical, very good team. Also had many things that we copied from you guys, especially during the time when Kakafu was like pushing on picking you, and we like put more focus on your teams. And I think there was a lot that we also learned from you guys back then. So I in general think we always respected you or him as a player and in-game leader.
I can say though, like vice versa, just my thoughts. Like I thought, like if I want to learn something new or want to copy a strat or anything, like I just go to ErikHillestad and type big. Just go with the like first demo, and you can already check the 2 first gun runs, and there's something sick to be taken.
That's I think what happened a lot actually back then to us. I was thinking, did you ever had a offer from Penta back then? Because I think if they would have picked you up in the moment where they had Zen, Sunny, if they picked you up instead of Crystal, I think this team would have been fucking nuts.
Oh, that's some skill for sure, yeah.
I actually think that would have been nuts, especially if HS was on point during this time.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, that was a chance I ruined. Because, I would say Sunny was, so there was this moment where I was either, I can get into Havu and do whatever the fuck I want there, kinda, and I know that we're gonna be the best Finnish team, and it's something I know it's guaranteed.
Yes.
And then I had the, Sunny was, I think, confirmed in Penta, he had a spot there for sure. But then they wanted to try out that. There was a lot of other players, or some other players, they wanted to try it also. So, yes, back then I kind of ruined it, because yes, I could have taken the chance to not getting to the best Finnish team, but I could have gotten into Penta and started my career earlier, or started to make something happen, because they played actually quite sick. But then again, I also think about the scenario in the same way, that I kind of farmed a lot of stats in Havu, and maybe that's the reason I got into ENCE, and without ENCE I wouldn't maybe be here. So it's it's something to think about as well, but yeah, I can admit it, I kind of ruined the chance because I didn't take the leap of faith there.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? The way I characterized it there, because from knowing Lurpus and Natu for years and years and years and years, it's funny because when people ask me all the time, why is Denmark so good in Counter-Strike? And I say, to be fair, the German scene, when it had more players, had the same thing. It's when you start your career, you play for IGLs that tell you how to do tactics and what role to play, and it's like a real sport. Every level you go up, you're playing under people who are at very least good. Remember, people forget Crystal's German. Obviously, Gobby, LEGIJA here, I'm sure every team, mate, look how many fucking coaches come from the German scene. Look how many of them went to foreign teams that you guys won't even know are German. So it's the same thing in Denmark. In Denmark, before you ever even get to play for MSL or Carrigan or fucking Cliv, you played for Hunden, you played for Asilian, you played for whoever, some real IGL. But I noticed in Finland, it's they almost just never really cared about that side of the game, it felt like. There's a couple of people, like I said, you in the modern day, at fair play to Saw, I can see why they picked him up as a coach. But aside from that, I also get the sense as well, when you look at some of the cuts made in these teams, they also sometimes don't even know that it is tactics that's helping them, if you know what I mean. What do you think on this topic, Aleksib?
I think you hit the nail in the coffin. I think in Finland it hasn't happened, and I think it's because of, obviously it's because of where everything starts, and if there is a system to build these players, there would be more. But I think the personality in Finland, all of the stereotypes, sometimes they actually match, because if you're a guy who sits on PC 24/7, there is always, at least I feel in Finnish people, maybe 2020 it's a bit different, but let's say 8 years back, I just feel there's a good chance that you maybe don't have the best social skills. You're not like a guy who keeps everything in control or want to be this guy. You're more of a guy who sits and just likes to play. So you're not a leader type. And then I just feel maybe these teams like ENCE 2016 and or even before 14, or maybe in the 14 team we saw it, and then iGame or Arctic or these kind of teams, I didn't see them pick up any talents. I didn't see them pick up any 16, 17-year-old insane player or some player that could have something. What happened a lot is that we just changed the players, the
recycled the old names, right?
The team, the 3D Max team, the major team, for example.
Yes.
It had a lot of old guys. Obviously, they weren't as old, but it had
Sure.
Mantu and these guys. And they really, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't really give it a shot to bring in someone really, really young and try to build him into a star role or something. And maybe some guy can tell me if I'm completely wrong here, but I just feel like it didn't really happen. But then on the Havu team, for example, when I was the guy who was a bit respected even, I took the chance on Sergey, straight up. Then I took the chance on Oton because I knew him from my past team, my previous team, and what he can be capable of. And this was when I was 18, I think, just turning 18 or 19. And I'm just picking up these younger players, and I think it really paid off. If you see where Oton and Sergey are right now, obviously not Sergey at the moment, but where he was last year, and where Oton is right now, playing in a EU team. So it's I just feel like we would see more Finnish players maybe if we took a chance on them earlier. But at least right now there is a lot of young players in Finland. But yeah, we really lack these guys who take the control, because we cannot see the new young guy in the top 2 Finnish team. We can never see him play like really legit until someone who is willing to be the leader is leading them to something and winning something to see what he's capable of. I don't really see those players.
That's kind of how I always saw the Finnish scene. I think that this Xarte, Caron, and this third player, they were in every single team. And it's funny, they had like 3 teams, like best team, second best, third best team, and they just always swap the players between each other. If this guy's performing number 2 team very well, he's just going up to the first team, and one player of them is dropping down. And I always remember it like three teams, iGame, Havu, ENCE, and they were always just swapping players between each other.
I honestly don't remember all of the roster changes, but I think you're kind of right, because I cannot think about too many roster moves that really did anything in the Finnish scene, because right now I'm not talking about Sunny getting picked up, Zen getting picked up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just talking about only Finnish teams and trying to bring a Finnish team into the top. I didn't see this happen too much.
Well, listen, this is obviously going to be relevant to your career, but I'm actually making a wider point again about the history of the Finnish scene, which luckily, thanks to having like a few friends who are in the scene, I've been able to sort of get the inside story on some stuff. Another thing that the Finnish scene is notorious for, which ties into exactly what LEGIJA is saying here, is they are normally so quick to cut people from their teams. Like, I don't know how they do it, but like you lose the land to the team that you think you're supposed to beat, right, cut this guy. Someone on the other team beats you and plays really well, we've got to get him, we've got to kick him out. Like Lurpus told me some crazy stories from 1.6. I've even told some of them publicly. He doesn't mind. Like, there was one where basically in one of his teams, like, they all had like a private one-on-one chat open with every other member of the team, and it was like fucking like Game of Thrones. Like it was like, it's like, if I can get 3 people on my side, you're kicked. If you can get 2 on yours, maybe I'm kicked. Like, dude, this is like what these guys are like. Is it really like that in the Finnish scene? Because they still have, obviously, your case is an extreme one, but we've seen some really crazy cuts. I mean, listen, we're not going to flame Allu necessarily on this show, but I did think that meme on Reddit was hilarious, the Among Us one, where it was like the original ENCE team, and obviously Allu must be the imposter because he was the only one left. Like, everyone else is kit for the team. So, like, even though that's a joke version, it's kind of like, it's kind of the way the scene works for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've heard, like, once you go out drinking with these guys, like, you hear the most insane stories, and I just remember this one you told, because it's actually true. Like, this is what they did, and they just suddenly changed players, and they can eat, like, after a week or 2, a guy could be back in the team or something like this. But
yeah, and by the way, there's the other thing. Because they're so, like, you know them, LEGIJA. Finnish people in general, it's not that they're all quiet, right? But they're just like, they have like their own way of doing things where they just don't talk about certain things socially. So when that would happen, by the way, they kick you out the team. So they're essentially telling you by their actions, like, yeah, we don't want you, we don't value you. If you're back in the team 2 weeks later, they just don't talk about it. Like, you're just back and it's like you were never gone. Like, it's like dad just went away for 2 weeks with some like fucking floozy into another country, but he's back now. So we're all, we're not going to talk about it. It's all happy families again. Dude, it's weird. They don't even address it.
Brother, I've been on 2 lands with Allu back then and with mouse spots, and I've learned a lot about the Finnish mentality just in 2 fucking weekends. Fucking crazy guys. And drinking in Paris with them was wild. So,
oh, of course. Yeah, there's the other thing, by the way. If people don't know that, because obviously all the nerds in CS don't know it. Listen, they're all mad quiet, yeah, like when you just meet them at a LAN and, they're not comfortable, they're English and stuff. But as soon as they have like 4 shots or something, they go fucking mental. Like, that's when they're getting like carried out, people having fights, like, it gets ridiculous at that. But then they're like, dude, they go the opposite. They start putting their arm around you, like leaning in way too close to your face, like, oh yeah, start telling you about like the fucking hockey team as though I give a shit about the Finnish hockey team. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Funny people, man.
But I think that the like, what's the most important thing in this, like, all of these teams, and why, like, I know the French teams, like, they tend to have fights, and they have like really hard like grudges, you can play with this player and this player. But what they do is they actually have a fight, like they actually talk and fight. But in Finland and in the Finnish scene at least, and I've seen it happen, and it happened to me at least, it's like you don't talk. No one says anything, and stuff happens behind your back.
You just DM people privately, right?
Yeah, suddenly you're like, sorry, you might be out, or you just don't know about stuff happening, you know. So it's like it's quite rare. Obviously, it depends on the players, but at least what I've experienced is like you don't talk about stuff that like you don't have this one-on-one talk, or you don't have this team talk where you actually address everything and try to fix it. Something we've done with OG because of past experiences. Like what we need to do is we just need to have these talks constantly to try to fix things and not to have this these things happen. But at least for me, I wasn't a part of the 1.6 scene, and it was insane about these stories. But for me, it didn't happen. Like I really dislike roster changes, and I always want to improve the team, because once I start the team, I know the players. For example, ENCE. I studied the players. I studied Aerial, for example, before I won a team like really hard. I knew exactly what X7 is like, and I already played with Sergey for a year or something. I know exactly what he's like, and I just overall like watched Allu's games because it was the only thing to watch if you were a Finnish player.
Of course,
because he played for a good team. So it's like I knew exactly what I'm getting into, and it's not like after 2 months I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Because I know what the players are. I just wanted to work with those. We played for what, like 1.5 years before we changed the player, and the player was me. So it's like I never wanted to change. And yes, like sometimes it felt like we were stuck or something, and we could have done something differently. We could have made a roster, like whatever. But all in all, like I kind of dislike them. But you have to face some facts as well. Like sometimes you really need to do it. For example, on the Havu team, when we didn't even reach the HLTV top 30, and it's a dream for every one of us. Like we wanna fucking be there. We wanna get into one tournament. And I just thought it was really necessary to pick up a young talent, and we picked Sergey, and suddenly we reached the top 30 and like got into a tournament. So sometimes it's a really good thing as well, and sometimes you can go really horribly wrong. But for me, it hasn't been that insane, but I've heard a lot of stuff. But you only work with so many players, so...
Yeah, sure. Right, let's get into some of the players then. So, okay, you brought him up a whole bunch of times, Sergey, who's obviously the player where it's kind of a bit depressing at the moment, because obviously he's gone super early to do his military service, which suggests that he just thought, fuck CS for now. Like, it's not my shit. Because if people don't know, if you're a pro, even in the 1.6 days, you can push that back like 5 years if you want. You can basically go almost to the limit. So if you go as... Okay, great, 10 years. But if you're normally as young as him, there's no way you go now, no matter what. If anything, you keep playing just to not fucking go and do that right now. So normally when people do that as well, they don't tend to come back to the game. Like, obviously people like Allu could do it because they're just way older now, but a lot of players just quit when they did that. So right now it's depressing, but let's talk about more like the other period, like when you picked him up, when he was in his best. Like, what was the strength of this guy? Like, he's not someone where until ENCE got good, people really were like raving about him, but I agree, last year he was mega.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is calmness, because you see these young players and you just see like they cannot handle the pressure. Maybe you've seen some players getting picked up now 2020, but it's only online, so I don't give it too much value before I see them actually play and actually be on those tough moments. But with Sergey, it was like, even with Habu, like the guy was 14 when I picked him up, 14, and he sounded and acted like he was 18, like I was 18 then, and it seemed like I could be the best buddies with him, and he would never bring up shit, he would never be childish or anything. It's like a really mature guy for his age. Obviously I don't know like what he was actually with his like friends when we didn't meet, but in a team environment, in a professional environment, he was so mature that it was quite insane, and it's so calm as well. Like, the toughest situations he could clutch. He's like getting bombarded by 4 different directions, and he's just giving calm, like info, as you would imagine, like a Finnish guy telling info, like just super calm voice all the time, you know. And obviously he gets excited here and there, but it's just, you don't see this happening too often, and that's what really surprised me. Because I didn't know it before I picked it up, that it was so calm and mature, but it was like a really good surprise. But I think, honestly, like, yeah, now that I think about it, like, I think the doom of him was that he was so young. So he didn't pick up the. I think he really didn't pick up the. Like when you're at the age that you pick up from others older than you, or you pick up like the way things should be handled or whatever, and you're really young and you just stick to those things. And I just saw him like grow up from a really shy guy to something that like he wasn't shy anymore. Like obviously not a bad thing, but I just saw some stuff that I think really like maybe he's thinking about it now, or I don't know, but it's something that I just think like something went wrong there, you know.
In the sense of like listen, we're not going to like tell any like out of school stuff that we're not going to talk about. Put it this way, what I basically heard is his sort of head for the game and competing just went. I mean, it was after you'd been gone from the team basically, but I just sort of heard like he's just not in the CS properly anymore. Now, obviously, one of the things people will ask about, so maybe you can address this, is he was at his best when he played with you. Like as soon as you left the team, or kicked rather, he just started to go downhill. I mean, all of them did generally, except Allu, basically, because Allu could just be playing any team, apparently. So do you have any thoughts on that? Was it something like the way you used him that made him look good? Did you have a special connection with him in the game? What do you think it was?
Yeah, it's something I think about also, because once I picked it up in Havu, like I just got to know him, and I just tried to use him in good positions and ask about how he feels and just work with him overall. So I just think like going into ENCE, I knew what the guy is capable of, I know what he can do, I know what he will offer. So it's just natural to put him into those positions and play him the way he likes to play. And he just shined. And to me, I feel like, yeah, maybe I used him correctly, but at the same time, like, it's something that after you play with a guy for a long while, you know exactly what he is. So you just, something happens, like you don't even have to say stuff. Like I know, for example, Mirage. Like if I'm calling this, Sergey will be coming out of A apps with the perfect timing because it's what he does. I don't need to talk. I didn't need to coach him like this. It's like really good what he could do. Obviously, we go stuff through like here and there, but it was a bit different because he could pick these things up by himself. And it's something an IGL like really loves, because at times you feel like holy shit, I need to talk about this thing, but then you see like some players like playing insane and having really sick game sense, and you're like glad that it's happening around you, you know? But
I mean, put it this way, that's one thing that people were saying. I remember, I think it was Blast when they commented on your comms, when I think it was Pimp, off the top of my head, is either Pimp or Maniac. They were saying like, oh, it's really great. Like Aleksib like telling them everything to do out of the spawn. And I was thinking like, mate, that sounds like a nightmare from the IGL. Yes. Like, you know, I want to tell them the basic thing, but I don't want to fucking tell you exactly what to do. Like, I have to play the game as well. Like, that's not always what you, like, I know a fan might think that's what an IGL does, but it's like, in an ideal world, you want to talk like as little as possible and just get the message across, right?
Yeah, I don't know about the specific rounds, but at times I do like to choose some things, because there is something that like stuck into my head, like maybe other in-game leader knows it, but stuff that happens on practice. Like, let's say this we call it Tapsen, okay? It's Inferno Banana, and it's like when the CTs rush and take Banana, and a guy is mid throwing a deep molly, so that you benefit, like the banana guys who are rushing down Banana, they get the molly there and they're throwing mollies and they're just rushing Banana, right? And then sometimes you just remember, like, I'm just using this as an example, like when you start to run out of T-base and you're like, holy shit, like now they could do Tapsen because they have the util, they have the money. Then I'm like, I just want to micromanage sometimes, like just watch out for Tapsen. Can you throw a molly? I'll throw a nade. So they just instantly get crushed, right? Because at times, like once you go out of spawn and you don't remind these things that we lose to, like on gun rounds, we might lose the round in 5 seconds, and you don't remind it, and then an individual just forgets to throw a nade, for example. He just wants to flash because he just wants to flash. Like it's a good thing also to do, but then the moment you don't say it, they do Tapsen and they just smack it back to you, and you're on eco, you know? So it's like, I just have it in my DNA, I guess, to like, wanting to prevent these rounds happening straight off the spawn so we just don't insta-lose it. So I'm just usually like telling a player to throw this specific utility just not to lose the round instantly, and I know how to work the round after because I know the guy might not be his flash or HE later in the round, so it's just something I like to do. But I don't know about the specific round like Pim talked about.
Yeah, don't worry about that. It was the more general point.
Yes, but some of those might be like really useless as well.
Fair enough. LEGIJA, when in big, was God B actually calling loads of stuff like that, or was it more like, you know, he preps it all in the practice and he just calls in the game more loose? What was it like in that sense?
Obviously, like let's pretend like Banana on Inferno. It's a good example of what he said with the Thompson move. I think for us it was more that the players on each side were talking with each other and preventing, because it was like when we played default, we made sure that in preparation of our preparing our defaults and building our defaults, we made sure what can happen early towards for us in the game. So we always, like for example, me and Taps were playing apps. We talked always with each other, careful for aggressive move. Let's peek together. So every time we did the default, Taps and I were talking and communicating how do we approach our round now. But obviously we had also rounds on cash, for example, where we were more grouped up together. Gob was telling like, watch out for B pushes now. Keith go peek with op, for example. Play anti against the aggressive mid push. So we had that also.
Yeah, definitely. Because I just have to say, like, I obviously have worked, and in this team as well, OG, we have individuals who can say these things, and sometimes we like when we're running out of spawn, another guy says it. For example, like if on Mirage, Mantu might be asking for a flash from Isa, right? Just over middle to peek with the op window. And then Isa might be like, okay, if I flash, this guy needs to throw something in pit so they don't just rush out pit. Because it has happened to us countless of times where Isa is just flashing and they're running out of pit and we already lost a round, you know? So it's like, it's really good when individuals do it as well, but as an IGL and as someone who always preps hard into a game and thinks about this stuff on practice, you just happen to do it like more frequently.
It's actually fucking interesting now that we speak about it, that I was just thinking on our team how it would be that, like for example, Aleksib is a bit more quiet guy, he's less talking, and I just noticed that he doesn't do it so much, and then I do it way more often also for the team in this team than I had to do it in big.
Yeah.
So actually interesting.
One player I wanted to ask you about, Aleksib, is probably the player people would least expect me to ask about from ENCE, which is actually X7, the guy you talked about before, who you was in a previous team with. Because he's obviously the player where, this is how you know no one watches Tier 2 Counter-Strike. Like, you guys had already fucking won that, like, Star Series where a bunch of the top teams didn't go before 2019. But because people only watch the big teams and they only watch the big matches and who their favourite players are, when you guys had that breakout at Katowice, everyone was like, aside from Allu, they barely knew any of these players. So if you remember, even though you made second at the major, everyone was like, cut X7, cut him, he's shit, get Sonny. And I always said to people, dude, if you're going to replace someone, those roles don't even make sense. Like, the thing about the X7 guy was, if you go and look at his stats, yeah, obviously loads of it's going to be red on his HLTV page, but he's one of those players where if you actually watch how he's playing the game, he is having way more impact than whatever that number says. Like, mate, just the amount of fucking clutch rounds this guy won was ridiculous. Like, there's no way a player of that skill level should do that. So that tells me he must be smart.
I see this team actually back then like the team like Big now, and X7 was the Titian from Big. I think he was like a very fucking important player for the team.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
But he's in the shadow, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I could say the same thing. It's like I can vision some players who are exactly the same, like Cipex. I'm not saying, like, obviously Cipex has achieved way more, but it's exactly the same playstyle as X7. Maybe right now, because I've seen, like, when the Cipex played Nuke, in the past games they just played, like, now Bobsky plays Nuke, but just before, like, Bobsky came in, Cipex, like, was, like, hard lurking. Like, that's something X7 didn't really do on the T side to, like, when we execute, he didn't, like, lurk behind, and Cipex did it, so it's not that type of thing, but the CT play and the play style, and like on the T side, he's obviously playing at the side, and what he does there is like not useless. Like he's doing actually good stuff, you know. But to just talk about the guy for a bit, it's like he was a really sick player in I game, I think it was. He was like putting up big numbers. And for some reason, I had the feeling that like from some guy, I heard that the guy was somehow toxic, but he was nothing. He was not toxic at all, and that's like a really like as soon as I started to work with him, I realized like how people can ruin others' reputation by talking this kind of crap, and then you're exactly the opposite,
Yes.
right? So I obviously gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I just realized the guy is like a super good guy. And then once I started to work with him and play with him, like he's a guy that he will never say, like he's never saying yeah, and he was never saying you know. He's just there, and I talk anything, and he just listens. And sometimes I might be like, guys, are you still listening? And then they're like, yeah, we're here. But it's like he never talks or says anything, but then he does exactly what I said, and he's not blaming. He's not saying that this is shit or anything. It's just always like I feel like he had good mentality and always super respectful, all of these things. He had insane movement, by the way, and when you watch, if you get to watch Havu's games in the near future or anything, like just check his movement. He's always, I'm sure Legia knows it, but like Xantares, you know how he jiggle peeks corners and jump peeks, you know?
Yes.
He jumps and then he like straight
jump,
back.
yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly what X7 does as well. And he has really sick utility usage. He is actually like, you know, when you spec a player, can this guy throw utility, or is he just throwing his stuff just to throw them?
Yes.
Right? Or you have people in the team who will have a set smoke, which he will throw in executes, because he cannot throw like these situational smokes.
Yes.
But X7 is a guy like, I wanted him to have smokes plenty of the times on executes, because you know that he's gonna offer a really good smoke or a really good flash or a one-way smoke, which is gonna clutch the round, or like it's really crucial for the round, right? So it's like, this is the type of player he is. And that's why it was a really good fit in the team, because yeah, I might be a guy who's offering util and doing this and doing that, but to have another guy like who can offer these things, who has good movement and really fucking sick clutching, by the way. The guy is an insane clutcher. It's like you need to have this kind of like this kind of player in your team. At least I feel like it's a really good thing to have. And when I think about our team, we have Balde. The guy knows how to throw util. He has, I wouldn't say better movement at X7, but like decent movement, map knowledge, can clutch, can play on his own. You know what I'm talking about. Like you need this type of player.
He's sick, actually, Balde.
Oh, especially at this flashpoint, mate. He was unbelievable. Like, for me, he was the MVP. Yeah. I don't care if they lost.
I was
like,
so happy,
so
though.
unreal.
I was so happy at a good tournament for him. I was really happy for him. Very good player.
Yeah.
Thing is, though, like I say, a lot of fans aren't going to appreciate some of this stuff because, like you say, some of the things that the guy does, like they can't hear your comms, like they don't know what he does in that sense. So, like that might even a fan might not even understand what you mean by that, because when you say he doesn't talk, like I said earlier, sometimes that is the dream as the IGL. Like if someone can just understand what I said, actually go and do it, not complain, just do their job and understand the like. That's one less person I have to argue with, tell them again, like correct them in the middle of doing something, like wonder it. Like you said, if they're on the outskirts of the map, especially, dude, this is one thing I hate in Counter-Strike. I hate when in-game leaders put like a player on the outskirt of the map, like the edge of the map, just because they think like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like we'll just put him there and he'll do whatever. It's like, dude, that guy needs to have the best comms. Like, if his comms are shit, I don't know what he's doing because I'm not on that side of the map and he might be doing nothing. Maybe he's just baiting us. Maybe he's not even distracting them. So if that guy has good comms and a good brain, that's like having a second IGL on the map.
Yeah, and what I really like about it is like as well that if we're doing theory or when he opens his mouth and says something about like if a strat needs to be fixed or anything, it's like, I know that I need to change it because this guy doesn't talk if it's not wrong, you know. It's like he can be vocal as well, but usually when he opens his mouth, it's like straight facts, right? He's not talking all the time, but when he does, it's like he's speaking facts. And obviously, like there are things like in personal life that can affect you, and I think it was the moment with X7. It's like he had some problems, like obviously not my fucking business. But
yeah, sure.
If he had some, like, that's when he could be like, it can affect him a lot, right? So I just feel like if the guy is in the fucking groove, like everything is fine in real life, everything like that's the like it's a sick teammate after that, you know. Just
obviously, like this is pure speculation because again, I'm not obviously in ENCE now, and I won't claim to have like all the best inside connections. I still know a couple of people. I also got the feeling like that's another thing they didn't understand when they cut you from the team is that someone like Sergey, who you've played with years and years, you know how to use him. He might not be as good if you just put him with a different player. Obviously, X7, if you're playing in a structured system, that's why a guy like that can shine. If you just put him into a team where everyone thinks they're a fragger and you're just playing loose Counter-Strike, a guy like that's always going to struggle, and that's how they always get caught.
Well, that's interesting.
So you can go first.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just rewatched yesterday the Michael Jordan documentary, and you hear the moment when he said, like, I wouldn't have been who I am without Pippen. And I probably wouldn't have kept playing as good as I did without Pippen. So Scottie Pippen, it's like his old teammate, and it just shows me again, like if you have a star player and he's performing so well, there's a fucking reason why. And this guy has played 2 years almost until the point Aleksib got kicked from ENCE. They played 2 years together, and this kid was playing out of outstanding CS, one of the best talents we had, next to Robs. And if you take the part that actually moving and giving this kid confidence, you don't understand how much confidence a player like Sergey or Thompson got back then from the in-game leaders. Bro, our focus was only on Thompson. Give Thompson confidence, give him confidence, make him shine, and we will be in the background and we will support him, we will help him. And once Thompson is grooving, enemies are struggling, and now every one of our game is also becoming way easier. And that's how I think, like with players like Sergey, that they once they are young, they have learned one style of counter. Once he started rising with 14 years old, he has learned Aleksib Counter-Strike.
Yes.
There's different ways of Counter-Strike of how to play.
Yeah.
German CS is different than Finnish CS. Finnish CS is different than Danish CS. So he's grown up with one style. And once you take this style away from him, you drop him into a different box, and he has to learn now this box as well. Yes, he may be smart. Maybe he can learn very fast and adjust and learn in this new box. But it will take time. But him playing worse, playing not as good on the level that he played before, that will also affect him negatively. Maybe he will lose confidence. He will lose fun to playing. Because if you used to play fucking good CS all the time, and then you start dropping down, CS gets a little bit less fun for you. Simple as that.
Yeah. And
that's why I think it's key.
Yeah, what I have to say is that's something that always goes in the shadow. Like, obviously I just said, like, I don't move him around, or I don't tell him, like, which timing you should come out there, like, out of apps on Mirage or whatever. But it's like, I could say, like, a couple words in a round that just makes him do the decision. Like, I might say, like, guys, one guy rotated to kitchen, and it's like, let's just try to go A fast. And that's why he's close apps, right? Or some, like, it's what goes in the shadow as well. Is, yes, synergy, and overall the game style. Like, once I have the intuition in my voice, you know, you have to be ready, you have to be, like, willing to go and ready to trade me if I fucking jump out or whatever. And these other things, like what I'm saying on freeze time, like I might say a couple words, like, you do this, like, fake this and go there. But then I don't say anything else, because you know how to play after, you know? And so, but what I mean is, like, obviously, I didn't play Sergey, like, I just said, like, you play A apps and that's it. Like, every round I'm talking to every one of the fucking individuals. But it's like, after you take it for granted, and you go out of apps 1,000 times, so you always kill 1 or 2, and you take it for granted that, yeah, I can do it fucking every time. But suddenly, like, some dynamic changes in the team, and suddenly, like, getting out of apps is like, there's a brick wall, right? Like, you just try every time. And then you think to yourself, like, why is this happening? But actually, like, some of the small stuff actually matter.
Oh, fuck, there is no more Aleksib taking pressure from connector player or whatever. You know?
Mate, that's the problem, though. There's another thing we could address, Aleksib. It was what you said at Blast earlier this year. Like, listen, you gave them credit later that eventually they did switch, etc. But I made a whole video on this concept, and fans might think I'm just making these theories up. But I think there's something to this. The reason why you can't say when an in-game leader gets kicked, it's not that they did it in your case, but they have done it for other teams. When an in-game leader gets kicked, like, actually, FaZe Clan's probably a good example, because they kept, like, in potentially being a top team when Carrigan was kicked. Right? Fans will be like, well, if they're still good, how could the in-game leader be of that good. It's like, well, it's not like they got, like, the Men in Black didn't come in and wipe everyone's memory. Like, they remember everything he was doing. So as long as it's still relevant in the meta, they're going to keep doing it, even if the IGL's not there. Like, you said in that interview at Blast, like, they were doing a lot of your tactics from Spawn still, like 3 or 4 months after they kicked you. So I'm sure initially they probably thought it was fine when you were gone. Like, even these scenarios, maybe it still worked. But what happens is, when you need that guy to change your timing, to adapt something, to bring a new round in, and there's no one there, dude, that's when it's going to get really depressing if you're like a star player who's pretty young. Because I've seen those players. It's why I always hated fans who didn't give like Nico and Simple credit when they were in bad teams and they used to carry every game. They were like, idiot fans go, oh, well, in a bad team, it's easier to carry. Bullshit, it's way harder. Like, you know how just mentally hard it is to keep your head in the game when you know your teammate's not going to do the right move, when you know that no one's going to follow you up when you run into a site, when you know that if you're left to clutch, you have to do the most impossible 1v4 clutch every time. Dude, the guys who do that, there's a reason why they all get called toxic, because you have to have an insane belief in yourself. You have to basically think, like, I am the shit, like, no one can do anything to me. A normal player, normal pro player, if things aren't going well and things aren't set up, if they just fail 3 or 4 times on a round, they're going to second guess themselves. They're going to lose confidence. They're going to think like, oh, maybe I should just play it a bit more passively, or maybe I'll let him go in first. Like, they start having those thoughts, and that's the beginning of the end.
Yes. Unfortunately, my headset cut out. I didn't hear a small part of it.
It's all right. Any thoughts, Aleksib?
Can you just briefly just say the main point?
Yeah, the basic premise I was tying it into was that you made that comment that ENCE was still using a lot of your strategies from Spawn, even way after you'd been out of the team. So I'm guessing, like, they probably initially actually thought they'd done the right move on you, because I'm sure they still were able to do some basic stuff.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, they were actually, and it's no joke. Like, I could watch their game and I just see, like, everything what is happening is exactly how we did it, and a lot of the rounds were exactly how I designed them to go. And it was actually, like, pretty funny because we played some practice as well. For example, Nuke against them. At one point, it was a long time after I left. We were playing Nuke, but this was when they still had X7 and Aerial. And I just saw some outside smokes, and I just fucking called the round to the last detail. Like, I just wanted to be funny, because obviously I'm not like that in practice. But I just went on the round. I was like, okay, soon it's gonna be this lower. It's gonna be this here waiting for you, and we're gonna win the round like this. And then it's exactly how it happened, and we just burst out laughing, because it's like, yeah, like, why would you? I guess the mentality was like, why would you want to change something that was working?
Yes.
But then hitting a brick wall time after time, like, maybe there's some dynamics change. Some guy isn't willing to commit to actually make the strat work. Your dynamics are different, but I think they tried to do it so long that it really hindered their overall confidence as a team. Suddenly they changed player, and then they decide to go, like, start on a new table, right? And to do a lot of new things. And I saw them, like, nowadays they don't really do, when I watch their game, I don't really see the old stuff, right? But
Yes.
I just think, like, if they actually just started on a fucking clear desk straight up, I left, it would have, like, it's easier to say now, but it would have, I think, helped them a lot more.
No, it's interesting, and that's actually what I also always said. Like, when we picked up Smuya instead of me, like, we were doing way better with me instead of when we picked up Smuya, which was like, Smuya obviously was the individual better player at this point, way better, and we thought that would be much better. But what we did wrong, we tried to put Smuya into our system. So when we in Big, we played 2 years together, we lived 2 years together, we were breathing CS together 2 years straight. We didn't leave the house. It was just Counter-Strike, legit 14 hours a day. So we started from a machine like this, and our machine in the end was big like this. And now I left the team, but we tried to get Smuya, but one part of our machine doesn't work anymore. But every round that we build, every single player has his role. Every single player understands timings, rotations, communications, whatsoever. And if you try to bring a new guy in that cannot really actually fulfill the role that, in this case, Nico has done back then, it will be so hard for the team. That's why I learned from this lesson, and I know that whenever you make a single change, you have to fully adjust your whole new system and start from scratch. You have to bring everybody on the same page. You can play that. That's what also proves me, by the way, one more time, that when I left Big and Taubi came in the team and they picked up Quito and Searson, Thompson said because Thompson was used to play this very defaultish style like we played back then in Big. We were like very structured. We knew what we're gonna do. And once they picked up Searson and Quito, Thompson tried to also call like this because it was for him first time calling. He obviously learned from Gob for like 6 or 7 years that we played together with Fatih. He tried to call like Gob, but it didn't work for some reason. But Thompson, very smart player, he understands the game, if not better than Gob on the level. But he said, Nico, I couldn't call loose Counter-Strike. I had to make everything from zero, play execute styles, play executes, and then from this we started going like into playing a little bit more default, playing a bit more loose. People get more freedom, but it was so hard for them to beat teams just playing like loose Counter-Strike and him trying to micromanage players too much.
I can just set up a counterpoint to that. Is like once leaving ENCE, I had the exact same feeling. Like I'm gonna go like on an EU team and I will play this style, and maybe that's actually like I could blame myself for why the early time in OG wasn't as fluid. It was like we didn't like we could lose like 0-15 and the next map we could win, for example EG on Blast and this kind of stuff. And maybe it's because the way I wanted to play, it was way more loose. But what really requires on this loose play is to have key individuals who know how to talk and know how to react on a situation. So when you play default, the main thing you need to be able to do is intuition and react. Because if on your default, let's say, I'm just gonna give an example. Let's say we play a default and we have three, for example, Mirage. We have 3 guys in middle trying to take mid control, a guy on A and a guy on B. And let's say they do something, like we call it Astralis, where the enemies just CTs are rushing up mid to fight you. And then you're like dueling in middle, like 3-on-3 situation kinda. And the side players are just chilling. Like, you will lose the round as T. But when you have a side player who's like, as soon as he hears it or he hears the smoke, he's just running out B because he knows he has a one-on-one duel. He wins that duel and the round is over because the mid players can just fall back to B and it's round over, right? So it's like this. I'm not saying that like these reactions didn't happen in OG or the players are unable to do it, but it's like maybe it wasn't the style they played in their old team, and they just weren't comfortable with it. So we had to like change up and exactly what you said, like go into this execute style, and then we played more executes, and now I think we can play pretty good. Like the both situations we play good is like we can play really good executes, we can play really loose also.
Play balanced, yes.
When Mantu just says like I'm gonna go B and peek him, then I just build up the round. Like if Mantu kills the guy, then we're instantly on B, but if Mantu gets smoked off, then we have a plan B. It's like we can play also this style. But I think it's just really hard, and right now the problem is for us at least is like it's insane how many man advantage situations we lose, and it's like we are tackling the problem currently and like thinking about it already when we join the next season. But it's like we will lose like 1-on-3. 1-on-4 against MIBR against VSM, then we lost like a 1-on-3 as well. We just lost to a 1-on-4 against Vini as well. He got an HLTV clip. And all of these situations, they are just misplays. They're just like one of us peeking without saying anything, or not like... We rarely lose a situations where we are all like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go, and we peek the guy and we actually lose it, and then we're like, okay, unlucky. But we actually managed to lose unlosable rounds, and then we're like everyone like this after, you know? And I feel like that's the biggest issue right now.
There's actually a cool phrase from Forrest for X on X. I don't know if you guys ever heard it, and I don't know if I'm going to rephrase it correctly, but he says, or their mentality back then, also in 1.6, when you're in an X on X, you either react fast, very fast, so the enemy doesn't have a chance to make a plan, or you wait, or or you take the risk to make a better plan than him. That was very interesting, and I think that it makes sense that if you make a really, like, let's pretend you have nuke and you take a lower B bomb site, and people will most of the time expect you to play passive. One guy will be in dark. You kind of know already what positions the cities are gonna be. But if you react whilst they're talking, okay, I will flash here, I will go there. How many times you think you catch someone off guard when he's just rotating down the ramp and he's having a flashbang in the hand? And that's where I thought, okay, fuck, there is actually a good point into that. That makes actually sense. React faster than the enemy can make a plan. And if you're balanced then, with like making sometimes playing passive, not always playing too aggressive in a game, and sometimes playing aggressive, then it's fucking sick. It's a good thing that I learned.
That's the game plan, honestly. Every time we play Big, or whenever we played against Big with ENCE, it's like, if we allow them to execute, we're gonna get abused, man.
Yes.
Like, you have the sickest flashes, sickest mollies, sickest timings, and like, if you allow that to happen to you, it's just game over straight up.
Sure.
Like, so you
That's
have
also
to, like, you have to kill them before.
What we also spoke at the very beginning of the start, when I think you mentioned that, like, about the Finnish scene with no not having too many in-game leaders and whatsoever, and you asked like Aleksib why that is, and I think I mentioned it already in one of our shows that I think you always, like, obviously in every scene you have the people that you look up, and let's say for example in Sweden, what people are you looking up? It's like Forrest or Get Right. Sure. Like there was a time when these players were prime players and you look up, and most of the people did. So what are they standing for? Get Right, the lurk guy, very good in Nix on Nix, Forrest the aimer. So there wasn't too many big like IGLs from Sweden. Yes. But let's take Germany as an example. Now I give you one thing. When I play FPLC and play, there is a German league now that they do go big league on FPL with like the, let's say, top 150 German players or top 200 German players, which is like a very big difference of the like 150 behind an FPLC players or FPL players. And I noticed how much better communication and team play they actually have than players where I think like, holy shit, you play for Navi Junior, you're actually insane player. By the way, they have insane team play. It was a bad example, but it's just, I think, the mentality from each country that you're coming from.
Yeah, I completely can get behind that statement, because like once you play these German teams who are a bit lesser known, like they're doing gimmick after gimmick after gimmick, like insane stuff you didn't even like realize before. And when we picked up Mantu, for example, the guy was just showing us smokes and like tricks you can do, and we always called him Attack Smoke.
Yes,
and it's like,
attacks. We also copied them. Yes,
right. Yes. So it's like we have, I think, at least 2 smokes right now that if we see it, it's like the Attack Smoke, or like, I know one in Train on Electric Box there is an insane smoke, on Ivy there is an insane smoke. Like, it's just an Attack Smoke straight up.
Sure.
They're very known for that.
To tie it back into what you were saying before about when you moved from ENCE over to OG, and obviously initially I'm sure you wanted to just get your style rolling again. You just want to put those players in, plug them in, see what fits. But as you say, like, since it's literally 4 completely different players, you have to adapt to that. You have to reformulate your own game. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why I know that fans think I overrate Carrigan, but I don't think they get it. Like, listen, when he was in Astralis, yeah, he had the 4 Danish players. They're obviously good players. They obviously did things with Glaive later. This is what people don't get. Look at the FaZe Clan teams he was in. He was in 2 that were in the top in the world. Then look at this Mousespots team. Dude, every time he's coming into a team where it's like, first of all, we're all speaking our second language, including me, Carrigan. Then I've got a guy from Norway and a guy from fucking Slovakia and a guy, like, this is a joke. Like, they couldn't be more different as players. So if he's then able to get his approach to work with them, he had to meet them halfway as well. He isn't just sitting down with a notebook like, right, here's what I used to do in TSM, and then no, he's having to switch up what he does. So I imagine you could probably appreciate this, Aleksib. I'm sure when you came in the team, listen, you had a bunch of good players. Like, everyone knows NBK and Valde. Like, sure, they didn't maybe know Mantu. Like, in this scenario, I'm sure it was like a massive culture shock initially. You had to like really figure out, like, what are these players about? How do they even see the game?
Yeah, and because, like, I'm gonna say it as well, it's like, I'm not sure about Carrigan, like, about 1.6 and whatever, about his past teams and how he evolved to this type of legendary IGL. But, like, for me, for example, Gopi then. But it's like, for me,
that's what I want to say, sir.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't play with a single insane in-game leader, or like I never played behind Lurpis. I've talked to the guy and always had like good chats and stuff, but it's like I never played under him, and he was long gone after I started, right? And it's like I played in Habu, I was the IGL. I got into the ENCE where there was Allu. Obviously Allu was guiding, but I wasn't learning from someone who was like fully IGLing, right?
Yes.
Or like a good leader, like a strong leader. I didn't learn from this. So it's always been like I have to fail and then I can adapt, right? And it's something in ENCE that happened that we got really like we got really good and everything started to work suddenly. And that's like my main experience, right? And then I go to a EU team where it's all of the other nationalities, and I don't have the experience there, like how to make it work necessarily. And then I just had to fail again, I guess. Like I didn't have the optimal approach to how to get this team really good in a short period of time, and how to like get everything flowing in a short period of time, and maybe it just took way longer. And that's why maybe the fall season for us was a lot better than the first season because of these things, like suddenly starting to click because we played for such a long time already.
That
But I
makes sense.
I think that plays you for your future, just in your cards, that you were the guy who has had to fall down, learn, had to fall down, learn, had to fall down, learn. But your fucking ladder is just keep going, and you know how to learn from mistakes. And that's why I think many people can don't, and that's why many people just stay on one fucking line.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for you about this, LEGIJA, which is, you've now done this in 2 teams. This is a storyline no one else has got, mate, because I make all the good storylines up anyway, so I haven't shared this one with anyone yet. So fucking buckle up, time for a little bedtime story, innit? Get the cocoa, right? So people haven't made this connection yet, which is in Space Soldiers, obviously Xantaras and Calyx were both in that team. And everyone remembers, if those 2 players went off, they could upset loads of teams. That's what they would do in all those online qualifiers. They do it like 1 map every major or something. And everyone used to think, oh my God, this team's going to be so good. It's like, I always used to say, yeah, but the problem is, look how those players are playing. Like, they are shooting you in the head. They don't know Counter-Strike. Like, they're really good aimers. They're skilled. But I always said, like, I'd love to see them playing like a real team. And you've now seen this with both players, mate, because when Xantaras first came in the big, dude, he wasn't even half as good as he is now. And when Calyx was in Envy before you became IGL, he also wasn't, he was like half as good. So I've seen with these 2 players, I don't know what their actual time was like in Space Soldiers or what the logic was in the Turkish scene, but my assumption, just speculating, would be they probably had a lot of freedom as to what they did, and they just did whatever they wanted, and the other players in the team played around them. Because when they got to your team, like, Xantaras obviously was getting plugged into a team that's the exact opposite. It's like, you have to do exactly this at this time, follow this guy. Like, a guy who's used to setting up his shots, picking his angles, like choosing when he wants to take this aim fight, that he's going to hit something like that. That's going to be the worst scenario. I'm guessing probably similar with Calyx, right? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think that I have learned so many aspects or elements of the game, and where people like Xantaras or Calyx, for example, didn't know too much about. And I think that I can, in general, just make the players more complete. But with a lot of help also with this lineup now from Cuban, for it, I have to be honest. It's important to teach those players not look. How can I say it? Like, in Space Soldiers, this team was playing for fucking years together. At some point, obviously, they had 2 star players or 2 players that have performed very well. But for them, was sky is the limit. For Xantaras, sky was the limit. This guy was so talented, but the team was holding him a bit down.
Yes.
And he was always used to play like this one style of Counter-Strike. But then you take it away from him and you drop him into another Counter-Strike. It's very hard for him. So if he learns all these other elements, which was at the start very hard for him, I think, for Xantaras, because he was so focused into the game style that he was playing before, but he didn't understand it. Bro, if you learn these things, small things, communication, team play, if you learn that, brother, sometimes he was in a 1v1 round or 2v2 situations, he had full fucking nades, and he finishes the round with full nades. But how much do you think you can make your job easier with using your utility and then just still having your aim duel or setting up your teammate? And I tried to teach him these things, and in general, I think I have the ability to teach people many different aspects of the game where they don't put too much focus in, which will make their game much easier. For colleagues, for example, it was like his communication was like actual garbage, like actually terrible. Sometimes he barely said any words. And for me, it was like flashbacks to Nex. Nex was a very quiet person. So I know how to use him. I gave him a little bit more freedom. Don't be too much involved in the game. But if he's involved, I will force him to talk. I will speak to him directly. I will not like speak to the team. I speak to colleagues directly. He has to be aware in this round now. I'm a key player now in this round. I have to be aware and I have to be focused. So I think, and it's like with Mishu, for example. Mishu is a person, he wants the duels all the time. He's like, it's like he has fucking bees in his ass or something. He has to run. He cannot stay 20 seconds on a position. So I know that in my head, and if I see a game, 2-3 rounds, we take mid control, he gets punished or whatever, he cannot do anything, they block him all the time. I take him away, then Mishu, go to this side, play aggressive now in this position. So I always try to make them happy in their game,
Yeah,
where I know,
sense.
okay, they're very, very confident. So that's kind of how I approach it with them, and I'm super fucking happy with Kalix. He's a...
Oh, mate, at the end of Flashpoint, he was fucking banging out of control. He was really
Holy
good.
shit.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I can see him being much better.
Sure.
If he's a bit less lazy, he's not lazy, but he's just Turkish, man. I don't know. He just has this Turkish mentality. I love this guy to death, though. Genuinely.
By the way, Aleksib, that's one thing I hadn't actually made the connection in my mind because I forgot that Mantu came from alternate attacks. That makes a lot of sense though then as to why, like, remember, this is like the first real year of CS he's played as far as anyone who watches the pro scene. Dude, he looks way too polished for a guy who's never played before. So maybe that makes some sense. He played in a real team where they probably used him as an AWPer correctly, showed him how to set up. Like, does he have a good mind for the game?
I mean, I think he has the perfect mind, and by mind I don't mean like knowing everything. But bro, I've said it on countless interviews, and I just have to say it again because, like, for example, we rounded out the year with the team like before going into our break now, and the guy was like, I wanna be like, when I watch this guy, like he plays, like I go to the exact position, like for example device, and so, for some reason I don't make it work, blah blah blah, and like bashing himself, and I was like, dude, fucking. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I've never seen a guy, and by the way, like, I'm not sure if you knew Thorin, but this guy was playing rifle on attacks.
Yes.
Right, okay.
He was... so when there... Was it Slacks, the AWPer there?
Slacks, yes.
Yes. When the guy picked up AWP, Slacks, that's when Mantu could buy an AWP. And Mantu always bought an AWP when they had the money. And he's just holding the site. So it's like Kito in Big. It's like playing the AWP on B does too. Exactly what Mantu did. Like, you don't play the AWP positions. He was playing overpass B site with the AWP, playing behind the pillar. And it's something I see him like sometimes that he wants to like play overpass on B because I think he's like really comfortable there. But you have to learn the A side. But it's like the guy changed his role. He's doing insane, and he's still like he did insane in the first, I don't know, 6 months already. And all this happening, he has the fucking thing with his hand that he cannot play DM. And he was like, we were talking on server, we were playing the practice needed, but he couldn't play the extra DM because otherwise his hand wouldn't heal ever. And it's like right now as well, like he's taking a month off from CS completely because he wants his hand to be fully healed so he can play the amount he fucking wants. And I know this guy, he plays DM he plays a lot of CS and a lot of DM, and that's exactly why his hand got fucked, by the way, because he grips his mouse with, like, this is the part that got fucked in his hand. He grips it really hard. Yeah, grips it really hard, really tense,
Yeah.
So that's the part that really, like, fucked him. So he cannot play DM, and he's just still smashing everyone with the AWP and officials. Like, we play against legendary AWPers, and after the match I open stats page or I watch the VOD, and he's just outpeaking them in their duels that they have done for 10 years. And it's insane progress for a guy doing this. And what I like about him the most is the good dude never says, or now he has adapted a bit, I think.
He actually talks the least, I've heard the comms, he talks the least of everyone on ENCE. On OG, rather.
He can come up with ideas now, but previously he didn't really. And he like tried to adapt and tried to learn, but now he's coming up with his own ideas, which is really, really sick to see already. But it's like, I can tell anything I want him to do. Like, I could lie to him, like, bro, do this, it's really sick. And he would do it, even though it's the fucking worst thing you could do. So it's like, I love the guy to death because he's learning so fast, and he's willing to learn, and he's willing to fail, and he's willing to listen. Because I've worked with a lot of people, or I know from other teams, a lot of people who is like, they have their mind, and you cannot take them out of it. Like, if the guy cannot go and take his own peaks, he's just gonna be angst. Like, he's not gonna talk. He's gonna be like, he's gonna be fucking your brain up, you know, gonna be annoying as fuck. But Mantu is just completely different. Just, he is so down to earth that it's like annoys me, because sometimes I might say that Mantu peak here, and then he doesn't want to peak it, but he just goes to peak because I said. But it's like, I don't want our AWP to die in 5 seconds. So if he says back, like, I've told him to, like, bro, say fucking no back to me at some point. And it's like, now he can say no at times because he knows better. Like, he knows maybe he peaked outside for 5 times already, and he knows they're doing nothing about it. Just let me keep peeking outside, so he can deny me as well. And it's completely fine, because maybe I got used to calling a lot of stuff for him before he got comfortable, you know what I mean? But it's like,
does that remind you of something, Duncan?
Who are you talking about now?
Of Malik and Kenny S.
Ah, yes, from the other episode, right?
The exact thing.
But the thing is that, just the last words, like, the dude has to catch a break in terms of, like, thinking down on himself. I think is the most what is the rookie of the year?
Yes.
Like, if I'm not mistaken about a player here, but the dude fucking changed his role. Like, he switched from rifle to full-time AWPing. And you don't play any spots which you played before. So let's say we had a guy who is entry fragger, moved into a lurk role. Like, sure, your style changed up a bit, but you still play with the same weapon at least. But it's like completely different, and he's doing wonderful.
Because the crazy thing about that, if people don't know, I've told this story many times and by the numbers, but because obviously I know NBK pretty well over the years, when he actually got kicked from Vitality at that major where you got kicked from ENCE, he already immediately was trying to plan a team. So he was talking like, maybe maybe I'll get Aleksib in the team. But if people don't know, it took months for that team to actually get properly signed to OG the org. Like, you were trying to put together behind the scenes, you were seeing what organization was going to pick you up. So I remember in the early days when he said all these names, he immediately told me like Aleksib, Valde, but the other two spots all changed. Like, I remember originally he was like, oh, we might get this Yampy guy. This is before anyone else knew who he was. He was just some nobody. Then the other one was Poison, who obviously went to Complexity. So the sad thing is, who as well?
Blame F, no?
I think Blame F had I think Blame had already gone to Complexity as well at this time. Maybe this was just before. But anyway, basically what happened then was, I remember after the first few months where OG wasn't looking that hot, I even messaged NBK one time privately and I was like, oh, it's so fucking bullshit. Like, you look how good that Yampy guy is. Like, it would be so sick if he was in your team. Oh, look, fucking Poison looks awesome in Complexity now. Like, it's just so unlucky, man. You can't catch a break. And believe it or not, like, he even said back then, basically, sort of like, nah, we're cool with this guy. Like, just wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, you can give props to Nathan for that as well. It's like, I think he was the guy who brought him up. And then, like, obviously we tackled every idea with Nathan about the player. But I think Nathan made the groundwork with Mantu, I think. I don't know. Yeah, it was because of... LEGIJA, who is the guy now?
Dude?
NKJ, maybe?
Dude and NK.
Yes, Dude.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, they're good friends.
NK is good friends with Nathan.
You know your
yes,
shit, huh?
Good as well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, NK, I think, boosted Mantu.
Yes.
And he used to be the coach of NBK back in Envy, if people don't know. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, the guy is fucking, like, he's a really good dude.
In G2. But to be fair, like, Mantu was actually dropping number and carrying in attacks. He was actually like carrying.
Yeah.
So I was happy for him to get this chance.
Sure.
Like, obviously, like, we sometimes had to play against Alternate, and we played against him here and then, and we noticed like that he's actually fucking good upper. So once he joined you guys, like, I had no doubts that he will be doing a decent job, but he impressed me even more.
By the way, on the topic of NBK, let's talk a little bit about that, Aleksib, because obviously he is like one of the most legendary CSGO players ever. If people don't know, when I say that line about him being the most decorated French player, it's true. Just go and look it up. He's the one who has all the majors. He's the one who has all the massive tier 1 titles. Obviously, he was even winning them last year in Vitality. Like, this guy's actual career is fucking legendary. And he's not done, even though people probably thought he was after Vitality. They thought, oh, look, his stats, like, not good. Because, again, he's another player where... Like, when you're at the level he's at, like, listen, he's never going to be at his individual peak. That was years ago. But he knows how to play Counter-Strike. So his logic instead is, like, how do I fit into my team? Like, the guys who are going to shine, it's going to be this guy over here, or I'm going to help this guy. So one thing I can actually say without spoiling anything is I myself wondered in OG, because you've had so many times you were close to winning a tournament, you were in semis, you were in a quarterfinal, but you didn't win the matches. Obviously, as an analyst, you start thinking, like, right, which piece could we take out? Like, who could we replace? Who could and I tell you what, when I heard some of the comms and I looked at what he was doing at this Flashpoint tournament, like, I think I can see the impact he was having on other players in the team. Like, that he was helping them be in position. So they might have got the kills. This is what I always say. I have a concept where it's like, there's certain kills almost shouldn't be on, like, your score on the scoreboard if I helped you get them. Like, I should get half of them or something, you know, but it won't on the scoreboard. The fan will just think, right, this guy's amazing, take out this other guy and we'll be even better. But it's like, no, you take the other guy out, maybe those kills disappear. So what would you say about playing with NBK? Because on the other hand, I've also heard he can be pretty stubborn sometimes. So give me the full story.
It's quite a lot to talk about. Give the full story, but I'll start with just when I got to know him and the first. Okay, I instantly knew, like, when we got into the first boot camp and like starting the team, like, I knew what he's capable of, because he has really good ideas and he's not scared to talk, and he's not scared to bring up, like, writing into a board or something, you know, because some people might be like what is this school, right? And but the guy has the balls and he has the knowledge to do these things, and people respect him, right? So it's a really good thing he can do. Obviously, we haven't met in a long time now because of the Corona stuff, but you could instantly see that there is something in him, like, good character, right? And then, like, the thing what I like about him the most is just that he's fearless, because it's something we lack in OG, I guess, to a certain extent if you watch our games at times. But it's like, the dude can, like, he's willing to do anything, he's willing to die, but maybe the only, like, downside of it is that sometimes we don't talk all of the situations through, and Nathan, like, he might not hold the guy who is coming behind him accountable, right? Like, if I'm committing myself and this guy behind me is not running with me and I just die, like I think sometimes Nathan dies for nothing because the guy behind him, like, didn't understand, right?
He didn't tread for him, yeah, sure.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, this is one downside to being, like, a guy who can hold W and just fucking kill people, right? But overall, like, you always love to see these players as a guy who has kind of a role to play and not like a star player. You always love to see these fucking individuals who's just fucking willing to go in, like, just lights out going in, no flash, just come after me, right?
Trade
like
me.
Yes, exactly, because not a lot of people are willing to do this. And overall, like, about the CT side stuff you spoke about, like, having, I know it's something that Nathan maybe wants to, always wanted to, or at least wanted to try, was that he's in charge of the CT side. But I just thought that, like, once trying it out, like, I just felt completely off, because assume this situation, which happened, like, on practice. It's like, I'm used to being, like, the guy who talks, or when the freeze time talks, just, like, overall just getting my ideas out there. And then, like, let's say we start on the CT side. This was the biggest problem for me, and, like, for my individual performance and, like, trusting my own calls. It's like, let's say we start on the CT side, and let's say the CT side is sloppy and we lose, like, maybe 6-9 or 5-10, and then you bounce back, and then you suddenly have to start leading, right, on the T side. And it's like, it just kind of ruined the flow, because usually like when I play the CT side and I'm talking and I'm invested, it's easy to turn into the T side and
Confidence.
just like, yes, exactly. So that's the flaw we ran into, and we almost instantly aborted the full CT side structure thing. But then going into your topic of like helping other players, I think he does fantastic, and like he could do it maybe like theory wise of craft, like doing new stuff and like coming up with new, like obviously always you can improve something, right? But it's really good that at times you listen and you can hear that he's talking to the other guy, and then suddenly the enemy executes and the whole side is just like on lockdown, right? So it's always really sick to have these pieces in the team who's doing it work, because like let's say for example Inferno is, I think you took it as an example. It's
Probably
like
the best example, yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing with Valde on B, and I'm taking banana, and sometimes I'm staying in banana, rotating back to A. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to know, like, or to know the situation exactly on A? Like, I just cannot say to them, like, do this setup, and then they're suddenly like, we cannot do it because there is a smoke here, they already took apps, whatever. So it's like, I can do some setups at the round start on freeze time. I can say, like, guys, try to do this. But mid-game, you always need this guy to be in charge. And you know Mantu, like, a bit inexperienced, that sometimes with the AWP, sometimes with the M4 on Inferno, not exactly knowing the best position.
Yes.
Then you know Isa, maybe not the best guy with the utility, like you need sometimes to ask him to throw this smoke. But it's like, to have a guy who is guiding always helps. And we know as well, like, when he speaks up, when he comes up with an idea, like, usually everything's just locked, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's hard to talk about everything at once because
that was a lot. That was pretty good.
Yeah, but it's at least something, and I, just two general things I just like about the guy is just he's fearless and he has the balls to talk, and maybe it's something that went wrong in the French scene.
I would even say, bearing in mind, like Inferno looks like the best map for OG overall. Like it's the one that obviously you play the most, pick it a lot.
We had a really fucking sick run at one point, being like 90% win rate and winning everything. Then we kind of, because after, like, it's just normal. Like after you have a map that is 90%, right? And then you have a map like, I don't know which one it was for us back then when we were really solid on Inferno. Maybe we had like Train, which was really bad. And then Overpass was up there, but we didn't play too much in officials. And then you like leave Inferno, because you just trust that you are really solid on the map, and you work on your Train, you work on your Overpass extra, and suddenly you face a team on Inferno who just completely smacks you, like Fnatic did, for example, like 2 or 3 times. I think they're insane on the map, and then you have to like bring Inferno back in, and obviously we practiced somewhat and came up with new ideas, but it wasn't the main focus because we're already beating everyone. And like being really good, like we have to be better on these maps also, otherwise we lose all the best of 3s. And then we started to be bad on it, then we put more focus, we started to be good on it, then bad. Like it's sometimes like maybe it's because of us having like a lot of stuff to remember, that as soon as you put it a bit away and you bounce back into the map, and then you start the game by losing the pistol in the first gun round, you just can't get back into the game because you don't have the flow, you know. So it's something we I think is a challenge.
Sure. I think it's for every team. Like exactly what you just said.
For example, Big on Dust 2, like they were smashing everyone on Dust 2, and suddenly they're just losing everything. Now, I'm sure, maybe I could be wrong, but I'm sure they didn't put as much thought into that map because they were losing Inferno every single time. So maybe they spent a lot of time on Inferno and suddenly Dust 2 fell off.
Losing turn to LEGIJA.
There you go.
A on lockdown.
Bro,
it's true. It happened. It happened.
Every time you pick it, it's like 16-2, 16-3 on Flashpoint. Like every time.
But anyway, the point I was going to make was, like, the reason why Inferno is the best example of what I was talking about there with NBK is, like you say, look at who he plays his site with. He plays the fucking A-bomb site, which if anyone knows the map Inferno, just think about pro games you see. If you have a really good defense on A, they can't get in the site. It feels like a nightmare trying to run out the balcony, run up the short. Like, you just get shot in every crossfire. The count of smokes come down, the flashes, it's a Molotov. Like, it's a nightmare. So in that scenario, like, he plays with the 2 most inexperienced players on his team. His AWPer wasn't even an AWPer before G, and his other player was in like a really busted up Hellraiser's team. So like that just shows you the guy must be doing something. Like this is one of their best maps, guys.
Yeah, and at the start of the team as well, like when we picked up Mantu, like he went through a lot of stuff with Mantu as well, like one-on-one, which really like always puts weight off your shoulders as the IGL, that you just don't like when I like let's say we end a fucking practice day, and then I already noted up to Casper, like our coach, about what I want to fix. Then I need to have like a breather, right? And then maybe the clock is like 12 o'clock in the evening. I can't bother to like spend the extra time then, and then I have to think about the new day and our like mistakes I want to fix. But then there is all like an individual that needs help to guide him where to go, where to pick. So Nathan really took those responsibilities as well, which was really sick that he guided Mantu as well at the start of this team. Now it's been recently more me, but it's like, you know, he can take this weight off your shoulders at times, which is really sick as a teammate to do.
Okay. One thing I want to ask you about, because I think this is actually an area LEGIJA here will be really interested in, actually, is, like, listen, I'll admit, some of this stuff, obviously, I'm able to know just because I've listened to the comms, and if teams speak in English, obviously, like, it's a mad advantage. I understand, by the way. If you notice, I'm totally in favour of the pro players, that I get why they don't want it. The problem is, I'm selfishly, I want it because it makes it way better to do my job. So I get both sides as to why there's push and pull on that. I'm not actually against players on that one. But one of the things I noticed was, like, again, fans won't know this because if they're just watching the game, it's tough for them to know if they've never played in a pro team. Like, was that something that the guy looked like he called, or did a player just rotate for no reason there? Like, they can't know if it was the player or the in-game leader. Like, mate, your actual, like, mid-rounding has been really good. On certain maps, I think of them as the one that mid-round is essential on T-side. Inferno, Mirage, Nuke. Like, on these maps, you have been really good at mid-round. Like, it feels like once you get locked in, I don't know if it's... That's why I want to ask you about it. Is it something where... Because I actually said this on the broadcast towards the end. I said, maybe I've been pushing it too hard with the idea that, like, they don't let Aleksib talk and then he just has to come in halfway through. Because maybe instead, maybe it takes you part of the game to download the opponent and figure out, like, the feel for where they're at or something. But once you lock in, dude, almost every big comeback OG does on T-side of a map. Like, that's why Inferno is a classic example. Like... It's nearly always from these reads you're making. Like, what would you say about that part of the game? Because I think for lesser in-game leaders, that's nearly always their weakest area.
I think that's something that I have, like, I think for every IGL, like, mid-game rounding for every IGL is the fucking, like, hardest thing. Because, first of all, sometimes mid-round calling might be super difficult because of your teammates' communication.
Yes.
Because it's the most crucial thing at times. Because yes, I might hear a footstep, or I might hear a utility, or anything that gives me the idea that right now they did this because I watched their VODs and they're fucking stuck into my head. And as soon as it happens, I just know, like, guys, it's gonna be 3 guys B, let's just go A really fast, something like this, right? But then sometimes my A player is saying, like, or B player, like, overpass, maybe Valde, like, Aleksib, it's the fourth smoke on B, it's the last smoke on B. Like, we can hit B late round. And then I'm like, I might not have the idea, or I had a different idea. And then by this info, I'm making a good call to, like, okay, guys, do this here and insta-rotate to B. Let's just go out of monster with flashes, and we win the round solely on because of that. And maybe it was the, like, you could argue, is it my mid-game call or is it Balde's mid-game call?
Yes.
But it's like a team fucking, like, it's like a team decision and team, like, how a team should work, right?
Sure.
Have these players. So on some teams, on some IGLs, it might be way harder if they are doing every single mid-game call, teammates fully silent, and not giving this crucial info of what they can do late round. And then you will fail most of your mid-game calls, or you will not have as insane reads, right? But then again, like, I can say, like, with ENCE, when I got kicked, right? And I had a talk with the coach. The next day, I just wanted to call to Twista. And I just asked him, like, bro, it's the last time we talk. I appreciate you, blah, blah, blah. Is there something, like, can you tell me something that I can start to learn from to be better on the next team? And then one of the topics was in-game leading, obviously. Like in every fucking IGL, it's the in-game leading always. But sorry, mid-game calling.
Yes, there you go. Mid-round calling. I mean, listen, that's almost like a meme that you were like, what can I work on? He's like, well, you could work on like in-game leading, fragging, like headshot, like just like that pasta or something on Reddit or something. Yeah. We get what you mean though, mid-round calling, yeah.
Mid-round calling. So it's something like, obviously, you are dependent on your team as well on this topic, but it's something I took into like account at least, right? Because obviously I knew that mid-game calling always needs to be better, but that's something I took into account from that call, and it's maybe like maybe I'm a better mid-game caller right now than I was 1 year ago, or maybe I'm the same. I don't know, but it's like I think what a lot of people don't realize is like the amount of what your teammates can help is so big that some IGLs might have it easy. They might have it so easy that they're just 75% of the time they do a mid-game call based on teammate info.
Right.
Or for example, coach info.
Yes.
Like I know for a fact like players like Hunden or who are other like maybe
Peacemaker or something maybe?
G2 coach Malek.
Malek. Yeah.
Like I'm almost
Malek.
certain, maybe I'm wrong, like people can shut me down here, but these guys, in my opinion, are mid-game calling at times, or are freeze-time calling even, because it's possible right now with
playing
like,
online, sure, yeah.
Playing online, so it's like some people might have it way easier, and I'm not talking like these fucking example I just give like full props to their IGL, they're doing fucking fine.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just an example, like some coaches might even help.
Yes.
And some players might help tremendously. So it's like it's sometimes it's the position you're in and what help you can get is some guy is regarded as like best like mid-game caller. For example, like Glaive is insane, bro.
Yes.
The mid-game fucking situations they won, insane. But I'm so sure
I know what's coming.
The team he has behind him, like if those players aren't giving like sick info as well.
You could call that.
Like, maybe Glaive is an actual god, but it's like I'm sure these guys who are behind him on Astralis, like these guys are they are giving proper info, like they are known.
I bet they're giving the best. Yeah, of course. That's what people don't get. We're not in any way dissing Glaive if we say that. Like, we're saying he's the god in-game leader, but the difference is, give Glaive fucking LEGIJA's team here and then let me see all the same shit. Like, he won't be able to make the calls because without the same information, he's not going to have the same read on what the opponent's doing. He's not going to have the same feel for where he can go. Like, it's going to limit his options. What I love about Astralis is he has all the options. He has the whole toolkit in front of him, doesn't he? And listen, he then uses it better than anyone else, but the point is, everyone else doesn't have that toolkit.
It's all... Man, that's what I always not badly felt about, or it always stung a little bit. Like back then when we played obviously with Gob, genuinely I really think that he is probably the smartest person I've ever played, or I think ever existed in Counter-Strike, just by the way of how he thinks and approaches things. But I hate when, not hate, but it stings when like broadcasters, for example, or talent on the desks or whatsoever give so much credit when a round happens and it's always the in-game leader, the smart fucking person. But do you fucking know how much info Zipnix and like what Aleksib says? It's so important for an in-game leader, and I noticed that now because my lurk colleagues is a very quiet person, and I noticed, and I had to interact way more in-game with him, so I have more information from him. And it's so hard for me in mid-round calling if I don't have info. So you always have to push your teammates, and they can make your job so much easier, just so much easier. But obviously you have to understand, you have to also know how to make them just in general, and make them know, let them know what informations do I need and what timings or whatsoever. But it's an important thing and big thing, what people often don't know, that in-game leaders rely so much on their fucking side players. That's why I also think, to be honest, like if we take Kerrigan as an example, that's why I think he's so fucking sick, because he teaches very young players, or very like less experienced players, so important things so fast. That's why I always say, like, I like to speak like in box or machines. That's why I think that Kerrigan is the best engineer in Counter-Strike.
Agreed.
Period.
Yeah.
He knows how to make your team like perfectly. And once you take one part out of his machine and bring a inexperienced piece, he will fix this machine so fast. Such a good engineer that's why value Kerrigan also is probably the best thing in beta. Yeah. Like in this case, in this sense.
Yeah.
I would rate Glaive over him because just Glaive, he outperforms him, like individually especially. And obviously, like, he had way more achieved. But
of course, yeah.
I think that if you put Kerrigan into Astralis, they would just win as many tournaments. I personally think, if he had the time.
I can actually spin this back to the Aleksib topic, though, because here's another reason, LEGIJA, that you know that this guy is a fucking beast. And by the way, if people don't know, like, I haven't spent 20 years of my career dissing people and calling them overrated to now start kissing people's asses. Like, if I think people are good, they're actually fucking good. Just trust and believe, player. So the reason why this guy has to be a beast, LEGIJA, is, first of all, not only is he Finnish, which is like the most antisocial fucking country of all time. Like, I'm pretty sure they're just aliens from another planet that just came in, made a colony, like, outside of Russia or something, and then just escaped from a Soviet lab or something in about 1912 or whatever it was. But anyway, that's just my pet theory. So he comes into this team, right? Think about this as well. I'm saying he's one of the best. Like, this is why I made that tweet where I said he's like the most underrated IGL in the world. I wasn't saying that just for no reason. Think about this. Imagine being really good at mid-round calling when not only is everyone on your team except maybe Mantu speaking their second language, but because they're speaking their second language, you're getting the information slower. Like, Janko made this point in my reflections about why he thought Nico was a good IGL, which obviously I have my own disputes with, but this point was a good point. He said the thing he was impressed with about Nico in FaZe was that in moments where if you take 3 seconds to make the right call, it becomes the wrong call, Nico was making the call really quick, because obviously as an individual player, he knew what to do. Like, that's an example of what I'm talking about. Like, if you're getting comms like Issa doesn't have super fluent English. He's got all right English, you know. Valde obviously wants to speak Danish if he could. Alexei's thinking in Finnish half the time, I'm sure. So, like, to actually be able to do the calls, I bet it's way trickier than if you're, like, I'm sure when God B's in an all-German team, that's, like, paradise to this guy, you know.
It makes a big difference. Very big difference. Especially mid-round calling, because what Alexei also said, there's, like, situations where it's just fucking go. You don't have time because, like, 2 seconds... 2 seconds longer could like be the rotation from an op and being already in B kitchen and killing you jumping out the windows. So it's very important, and like obviously being an international team will make you much slower. So kudos for that, especially.
Yeah, something I have to say as well is like what I've improved in my game. Maybe it's because of the thinking of how to improve my mid game calls, because I thought about it at one point. It's like I watch a lot of fucking VODs. Like, I know Casper, the coach, helps me a lot, but he helps the players as well to have it easy on them, to like open up the certain clips he wants the players to see, the executes, blah blah blah, this kind of stuff. So it's like, for me, I watch a lot of our opponents' games, but what I do as well is, I don't want to. I'm so eager to tell something, but bro, I need these things.
Trade secrets.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Like big for a longer period of time. Yeah, but it's like I'm playing my own. Like, we're playing a default, let's say, on a map, and then I see a guy doing something, and I know it by the utility. I know it by seeing the guy there, let's say it's the AWPer or it's the rifle guy, and I know the rifle guy who plays X position, like, it cannot be anyone else than this guy. As soon as I see this, and I know their tendencies, I just know highly likely which setup they're running or defense they're running, and what is, like, most likely open. And even though it wouldn't be open, it's still a decent idea to like explode somewhere or whatever. So it's something I'm taking note of, and it's something I do consciously. It's like I look at those things, and then on some defaults I see something and I say like, guys, let's just go back to here and explode with one flash. And then we do it, and more often than not it's just like perfect. It's I watch the VOD, it's exactly what I thought it's gonna be. Sometimes we lose the situations, not maybe because the enemy team like I made the wrong call, but we just execute it poorly. But it's just something that helps me, and maybe some other IGLs can make like help themselves, I guess, now that I
Sure.
said it. Maybe some people don't do it, but it's at least something I maybe did with ENCE as well, but now I at least do it consciously, like way more consciously. Like I watch games, and by overall just seeing how they play, how should I approach, which strats should I use, the game we play, the map we play. I also try to remember these things out of the normal. Like if I see this guy here, I'm just gonna straight up call this. And then when I have this like some tendencies in my mind, and then I also have the calls ready, which calls I want to go with. Like it just sets me up for a really good half. Obviously, if we lose the anti-eco, if we lose the fucking pistol, those things all like always goes like can make you go downhill and not have the perfect health. But it's like if we have a good health, it's most likely these things.
Sure. I mean, one area I definitely noticed also your impact was actually specifically on T side of Mirage. Because even though, like, I noticed your team picks it if you don't pick Inferno, like, mate, I don't actually think OG is that great on Mirage. But on the T side, you just basically do... I'm sure it is, but here's why. Because he just does it all himself on the T side, mate. He runs in the fucking connector by himself. He chooses when to push an area. He holds the attack on mid and then waits if he sees a guy in the window room, then calls something really quickly. Like, that's just like, mate, it's really hard to do that as an IGL. Like, it's cool to tell someone else to go do that, but like, basically you're just making the reads yourself, right?
Yeah, it's like I had this same role, or kind of the same role, in the past team I played, like Havu. And I love these maps, for example, Nuke and Mirage, and it's maps where I actually like don't have that bad stats, you know? Like I have stats, like good stats, because I know how to entry, I know how to go certain positions and blah 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 blah. And it's maps we play a bit different with OG, because I know how to do this stuff, and like other players maybe I won't say like put them into shadow, but it's like we just have a different dynamic in a map. For example, on Train, I don't do jack shit. Like I rarely peek out of team main. I rarely rush out of pop. I rarely like I help Valde brown holes. I help people. Like it's a whole different dynamic. And sometimes I might go outside, like if I have the best spawn, to do like moves I like to. But on Mirage and Nuke, for example, there is a lot of things that just I did constantly with my past teams, and I did it really well back then. You could go and check, like when I played for Havu, is like I like to play this role as well. So it's not something I just in OG just wanted, like yeah, I'm gonna be the guy who runs in con. It's actually something I did for a long while. And on these maps, the dynamic is a bit different, yeah, but I think it really works because these are maps where we are actually decent. I feel like we are pulling some good wins.
Sure. Right, one player, we talked about him briefly, but let's talk a bit more in depth, is Valde. Because this is the guy where I don't think people get it. When I always said he was the most obvious player that should have been like next in line to join Astralis, I didn't just mean because he had good numbers or he was like a star player in North. I meant if you just look at his style of play, dude, he plays like he's in Astralis now. Like he's super smart, no argumentative attitude, really good comms, like really mature guy. Like because he only got into the pro scene when he was older, he like doesn't take it for granted. Like plays this really hard spots on CT side. Super smart, frags out of them. Like, dude, he must be a dream to play with. He looks like a fucking awesome player.
Yeah, it's again like a player that has, like, it's so hard to find flaws, because if you want to find flaws, you just have to like search for them, kind of. It's like, because if a guy is like such a good and nice person, and like never talks shit back, and like always has a good tone, you know, it's like it's hard to have problems with the like types of guy like this. And I just feel like Valde is really down to earth. I don't look at, like, for Valde is kind of a bit different. I think I can check Sergey is the same way. Like Sergey never ever played a lot of CS. Like it's, if someone thinks he did, he didn't. Like, so he got some flame right now with the ENCE team before he decided to quit. It's like he got flame of about 30 hours. Bro, he had 30 hours when we were on the major finals. It's like if he had more than 30, it was because of the matches we played there. It's like the dude always played the the amount of practice we played, let's say, obviously it's not 30 hours, that's a bit too low, but like I'm talking, he didn't have this, like Xantares has 120 the whole time, right? And Sergey just had like 50, and he's just connecting the server and killing you. It's just the way he was, and if he played more, it made him uncomfortable. And if we played like really low amount of hours, like it's not good obviously, but he just had this, it was his style. And Valde is kind of the same way. It's like if you force him to play like too much CS, he will be worse. And if he plays too little CS, he will be worse. But it's like he has the same way. And by the way, like this Flashpoint, he had this, I'm not sure, should I name him? I don't even remember right now. But he had like a good friend of his, which he spent a lot of time on server, just like finding new smokes, finding like one ways. Like this is what makes him insane, bro. I said after Flashpoint, like we have to hire the guy to always find smokes with you before we play a tournament. It's like with Valde, like he likes to do this stuff way more. And he, like, obviously he plays DM, he plays retake servers, that's what he loves to do, but he doesn't play like countless amount of hours.
Right.
But bro, if you let him go and brainstorm, he has a good mind for the game. If you go and let him brainstorm, tomorrow he's coming to practice with the best mood ever and like killing everyone. So it's like I just hope he just continues to smash it, because he's doing sick at the moment. Obviously finding himself at the start of the year, going away from IGLing, maybe a bit different again. It's his first international team, as it is for every one of us except for Isa. So just to fit in and not be in the, because at times like we had these arguments, or not arguments, but he could say like with MSL we did this, or I'm not sure how to say it, but it's like they had a strict system, let's say.
Yes.
And he was used to it. So it's like, it's something that he's just adapting. And once you have this like really good mind for CS that you can adapt and you can like pick up new things. Okay, I can play my role this way. Okay, I have like new openings. I can like, let's say I wouldn't care if he decides to do a push. He can do a push, like go and do it. If you feel like you're gonna win the round by doing it, like go ahead and do it. It's like, bro, when he gets to the like when he gets into the comfortable zone and he's like playing with this good mood of his, like it's just unstoppable. But that just goes to show like how some players work, because some people like behind, like in the behind of the scenes, or the fans who are watching, like they think that if a guy puts 100 hours into weeks, he's gonna smash you like every time. But I just learned that you have some players who don't put like this
yes, of course,
insane amount of hours, and they just play insanely better when they actually don't. Obviously,
Dude.
I'm not saying don't play 20 hours, but
of
I
course
mean
not,
like
yes.
40, 50, something like this.
No, I mean, my joke would be this. Like, there's some players even where they would just go crazy if they played 100 hours. Like, I'll make this as a joke, but there's like sort of a grain of truth in it. I'll wink at the camera as I say it. Put it this way, if you want like Nico or Shox to be at their best, they should have like, 40, 50 hours, like watch a few demos, and then at least 10 hours in the bar that week. If they have that combo, that's the formula right there. And if you might think, what the bar part? Listen, that's essential. That has to be in the formula. And at the end, it equals, best player in the world or whatever. So there's some players are like that. Like I actually imagine with Valde, if you ever see his Instagram, he's the sort of guy who actually is like, he's actually how we all should be. He actually has like a balanced life. Like he fucking works out, goes out with his family stuff. Yeah, everyone else, we're all fucking nerds on the computer. He's actually like, he's just killing it in every area, isn't he, the bastard?
Yeah. It's like at times I just, like maybe we have a loss or something like this, and then I open up my phone and I see on Instagram like he's eating some like super good food or a restaurant, or like he just completely made some sick food out of scratch. It's like I'm here like this, like, bro, I just like I want to go to sleep, but I will cry if I go to bed. Like I just mean like I'm fucking, I could never go to the kitchen and smash some really sick food, I have to be happy in order to do that. And then I just say to Valde, like, bro, like, can I have this life that you can just forget about it and move on?
This video was kindly supported by LEGIJA15, Pronogo, Mohammed Alabdul Razzaq, Dean Tanglis, Animosity, ErikHillestad, Andreas Kroknes, Hades, Jensen Goh, Zoomba, JDubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Do you want to ask me a question in one of those monthly AMAs I do? Would you like teasers for who's going to appear next on my content? Or would you even like to take part in one of those crazy donator discussions I do where we go all over the place? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skoluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.